Honorable ministers, ladies and gentlemen, it's humbling to stand in front of the Industrie of Austria and talk about the world. Because I know that many of your companies are world-leading in your products and services. And yet my task here is not to be humble tonight. It is to try to make an overview of the world and tell you how the world looked like. And I'll be very courageous. I will start by asking you questions. I will ask you 2 questions. The first question is, how many out of 10 persons in the world have electricity at home? It's a quite basic question about the world. I will ask you 2, 4, 6, 8, or 10, and you will answer by raising your hand. How many think that it's 2 out of 10 who have electricity at home? How many think 4? How many think 6? How many think 8? Aha, now the second question, and that will be about humans. How many out of 10 girls go to primary school? That is in that age group, primary school 1 to 6 year, more or less internationally. So out of 10 girls, how many is it that go to primary school? How many think 1? How many think 3? How many think 5? How many 7? How many 9? Oh, it was very good that you invited me. There is 8 persons out of 10 in the world that have electricity at home. And in the world today, 9 girls out of 10 go to school. I'm sorry to tell you that you are between 40 and 50 years after your time. The world has changed. The world has changed immensely. Of course, that electricity may just be a light bulb, but it changed the life of families to have light at night. Of course, that girl may just attend for 6 years in school, and the school may be weak, but it changed the life of nations when girls go to school. So, let me start talking about people. I will talk about people and about money tonight. How many people are we in the world, and where do they live? I have divided the world here into 4 different regions. This is a new Swedish innovation. With research and development, we have managed to solidify the beam of the laser pointer. And this is much better than laser pointer, you know? To give Europe a chance, I had to include Turkey and the whole of Russia. Otherwise, Europe would be too small. And I decided also to make Australia Asian. We are an independent foundation, and we can do as we see fit for pedagogical reasons. Now, we are totally in the world today 7 billion people. To be exact, 7.4, but this is an evening for overviews. Where do they live? 1 in America, 1 in Europe, 1 in Africa, and 4 in Asia. Remember, PIN code 1114. And it tells Austria the main message of tonight: don't look northwest, look southeast for the future. You are at the front of Europe in the future, not at the back of Europe when it comes to markets in the world. Now, what will happen in the future? We know fairly well what will happen with population. Up to 2050, there will be no more people in Europe, no more in America, but there will be 1 billion more in Asia. And by that extra 1 billion, the fast population growth in Asia will be over. There may be slight growth. Asia may even start to decline by mid-century. And by mid-century, there will be 1 billion more in Africa. Look, Africa will grow with 100%, Asia only with 25%. And Africa will continue to grow. By the end of this century, and this is not my calculations, these are the calculations of United Nations Population Division. There will be 1 or probably 2 billion more in Africa. This is when the whole world population will level off, somewhere around 11 billion. The only estimate, we have some estimates which are slightly lower from other experts, but this is more or less what we think. Look, if I divide this in North America and South America, West Europe and East Europe to what I call the Old West, that will be less than 10% of the world population. When I went to school, it was 30%, and now it will be less than 10%. In the future in the world, 80% will be living in Asia and Africa. The Indian Ocean will be the center of world trade. The North Atlantic will be backwaters. And mind you, The PIN code will change. It will be 1145. I've noted that the CEOs of the major company, this is the slide they like most. They ask for copies for the upper level management for this one. And it's interesting that already today, 50% of the world economy is outside the OECD. And China is now a country exporting capital. China's growth have come down a little, and there are some problem. What I think is most important is that China export capital now, net exporter of capital. How will it be? Probably the money will follow the population, and by end century we can expect more or less 80% of the world GDP to be outside the West. So that's really where the future is. And I think one of the major dangers for Europe is to think that our glory is in the past, when the rest of the world know that their glory is in the future. We need to have a vision of improving Europe, of seeing how we can make this part of the world, which is so good in many aspects, even better to live in and even more capable. Now, what is the biggest change in our time? The real big change, I think it's this. It's the number of babies born per woman, because that's when we stepped really out of nature and become modern people. And it has been, over the history, about 6. You look at all records from China, from censuses, the oldest record from Europe. You go to the rainforest today, more or less 6. Some have 15, some have 10, some have 3, some have no children, but on average 6. And that didn't change much. When 1965, I was in secondary school, it has only dropped to 5. And then, during my adult lifetime, and mind you, these numbers we know very well. There's very little uncertainty on this. This has happened. We are on 2.5 today. China 1.6, India 2.4. And we know that, we know that this will happen. Now look at the different regions. Europe didn't fall fast. The decrease of family size in Europe just started early. America came then after. They had a baby boom after the Second World War. Then they came down to this. And then Asia scared a lot of people. And they said, oh, Asia will have an explosion. But look what happened. Roof. They're down to 2. And here is Africa. Is anything happening in Africa? Yes, lately it's on its way down. And we know that this will happen more or less. We don't know how fast Africa will come down. It may be even faster. And especially, we don't know where we will end up here. Will the world in the future be like Sweden or like Austria? In Austria 1.5, in Sweden 2.0. I'll tell you later how we do when we make children. Because we are a little better on that than you are. The old balance was like this. Back in history, father and mother on average got 6 children, that I told you. Why didn't world population grow? Or why did it grow so slow? Because 1, 2, 3, 4 died before growing up to become parents themselves. It was utterly tragic. This is still in the rainforest today. People don't live in ecological balance in rainforests. They die in ecological balance with nature. Now, they are very skilled about nature. Their rights should be defended. But you shouldn't be naive about the past. It was ugly. Then, when the Industrial Revolution, which your organization is such an important part of, when that came, it was not that people got more children, it's just that more children survived. And with 4 surviving children, population doubled, and it increased like this, and we gained 7 billion. And this is not an exponential growth. People say, oh, explosion, exponential growth. Since 1960, it's a linear growth. 1960 growth rate 2.1%, today 0.9. And we know that this will stop. How can we know that it will stop? Because of something that has already happened. We already today know that it will level off somewhere. 9.5, 11.5, somewhere there, because we have almost reached the new balance. The old balance was controlled by death in the graveyard. The new balance is controlled by love in the bedroom. The bedroom runs the world. The young couple say, let's make a baby tonight. Later they say, let's wait another year. Let's make 2 years, then we'll have another baby. It's decisions in the bedroom that runs the world today. And that makes an enormous difference. We have disentangled sexuality from reproduction. 2 of the major forces in life, 2 of the major sources of happiness in the life. We have disentangled them from each other. Now, how come that the population will grow then if the number of children is not growing? Because it's not. We have reached peak child. The number of children in the world will not increase because girls go to school, because they have electricity at home, because 8 out of 10 live a decent life in the world today. And the number of children will not increase in the future. It's only the adults that will increase. Adults will become more and more in the world. We have reached what I call peak child. The fact that the number of births in the world is no longer increasing, I say it's the biggest event in human history that was ever completely missed by media. Because it happened slowly. It didn't fit the concept of media. Slowly, slowly. And then we had this idea that Muslims get so many children. I have breaking news tonight. Muslims can put on condoms. There is no major difference. I will show you later. But first, a detailed lesson in demography about population composition. It's so important to understand. Now, each of these dolls here is 100 million. Formerly I had 1 billion, now it's 100 million. And here are the Europeans. This is 0 to 15, 15 to 30, 30 to 45, 45 to 60. And this is me, my group up there, 60 plus in Europe. Same amount in all age group. Here is America. They lack a little retired people there in South America that will soon be added. Look at Africa. Already today, 400 million children. That is as many in Africa as the entire America and Europe together. And if by magic tonight there would be 2 babies per woman in Africa, the population will still double. Because the death rate ain't that high. In the world today, we have 135 million births per year, and we have 5 million children that tragically die. 5 million child deaths, and how many abortions? We have 40 million abortions. 40. That's how it's regulated. And with contraceptives use being the vast majority of the world population using that. So, in Asia, population have stopped increasing down here. No more children. And this big empty area is not empty because people have died. It's empty because they were never born. This is a population pyramid that I've turned around on the other side to show you how this area will fill up. Because what is it that's going to happen? Demographic statistic is quite exciting. It's about sex, birth, death. You know? That's what films are made about. So old people like me, they die. The rest, they grow older, and then they get children. The old die, the rest grow older, and they have children. The old die, the rest grow older, and they have children. It's not that difficult. You can see the old die, the rest grow older, and they have children. And by 2085, we have filled up. You saw that there is more and more children in Africa, as many of you knew. You thought, how can he say that the number of children in the world will not increase when I know Africa gets so many children? Because they are decreasing in Asia. They are decreasing in Asia. China is closing schools today and convert them into homes for the elderly. Rural China is full of empty schools. There will, of course, be a fill-up. This is the main reason why we will have more people in the world. It's an inevitable fill-up of adults, of people who are already born, or people who just replace themselves with 1 child. It's inevitable that we will become 2.5 billion more. I get sort of upset when I hear environmentalists who are concerned about the environment and climate, which I also am. I'm a member of the Swedish Academy of Science, where the climate analysis started, and I make the videos for the climate panel. But I don't think that we can stop the number of people in the world. It's inevitable that we become 10 billion. We are planning for a world with 10 to 11 billion. Because this is an inevitable fill-up. Then people will get a little longer lives. Of course it's nice. I desperately want to be this one up here. Because then I can follow statistics for 15 more years. You know? But that's not the big thing. Life expectancy in the world is already 71 years in the world as a whole. Life expectancy of the world as a whole is closer to Japan than to Congo. The health of the world is skewed to the better because there is electricity at home, because girls go to school, because 85% of children in the world are vaccinated. We don't have that misery in the majority of the world any longer. Now, we don't know how fast this will come down. We don't know really if Asia will decrease this much. There is uncertainty here, but the uncertainty is not so big as you think. Let's go for the money. Let's talk about the money. And first I'll show you the combination of money and fertility. Number of babies born per woman. Let me do this by swapping here to another graphics. This graph is what I want to show you. Here I have all the countries in the world. Each bubble is one country. The size of the bubble here, the size of this bubble here is the population. The two big ones is India and China. Red is Asia, yellow is Europe, green is America, and blue is Africa. And this is 1966. It was the year when I hitchhiked through Austria for the first time. Ich spreche Deutsch, aber nur einem alten Autostopp-Deutsch und ich kann es nicht benutzen. The problem is that everyone who speaks German also speaks nice English, so we never get to practice. We never get to practice. So this was 1966. Look, here is the number of babies per woman. 2, 4, 6. Large families, small families. Here's income in dollar, purchasing power parity, inflation adjusted, 1,000, 10,000, 40,000. This is the Western world down here with Europe. This is America. This is Canada. This is Japan, Australia, New Zealand. And you see, they were one cluster. And the rest of the world was up here. This must be Brazil. Yeah, this must be Nigeria. The rest, Asia, Latin America, Middle East, had large families and low income. And how has the world changed? How has this come down? How has it come down? Let me mark this country here. The Syrian Arab Republic, which is so in our thoughts these days. And I mark that one so you can see how that fall. And here we go. I start the world. Can you see as the years pass by, then Mao Zedong decide to provide family planning for the Chinese and the number come down here. But they are not rich with Mao Zedong. You can't get rich. But then he dies. And Deng Xiaoping this. Let's go for the money, Deng Xiaoping says. In the beginning it's not difficult, but then they take off with this fast growth and they go for more money. India is following. Look at Syria. Syria is coming straight down there. And almost all the countries of the world is coming down. Now even Africa. This is Ethiopia. Look at Ethiopia, how they are coming down to there. A completely new world. Most are down there. And look at the difference of Syria, who used... Yes. An applaud for the world. An applaud for the world. You see, you got it wrong. 80% have electricity. 90% of girls go to school. 80% of children are vaccinated. The majority of the world live a modern life. And they have small families. Then we also have countries like this, Congo. Then we have countries like this, Niger. Then we have countries like this, Afghanistan. We have Tanzania still lagging there, but others coming down quite rapidly. Let me redo this just one more time for you up there from the 1960s. And instead I can take Syria away. And instead I change this to religion to show a thing which is main religion. Blue, Christianity. Green, Islam. Red, Eastern religion, Hinduism and Buddhism. And you can see, yes, Japan was down there, and then it was Christian. Rich Christians were down there with few children, and the rest was up here. And look when we run this again. And have a look at the green, mainly Islamic countries, and the blue Christian. Well, there are some countries which are mixed, like South Korea and like Nigeria. Then they're open. Very carefully designation, according to best statistics. Can you see here how they come down? And as I told you, the Muslim countries are coming down. If they have a little progress and improvement in health, they are coming down in the same speed. This is Indonesia coming down here very fast. This is Bangladesh coming down. This is Pakistan coming down. There's no difference between the blue and the green. It's just in the mindset of those who look backwards, who are not updated. Up here you have Christian African countries, deeply Christian. They have the highest percent of churchgoers in the world today, Christian countries in Africa. And you have Muslim countries up there, and then you have them all the way down here. The religion is not so important in the bedroom. There are forces much stronger in the bedroom. Much, much stronger. So, this is the world today. Catholics, Buddhists, Hindus, Muslims, Coptic Christians in Addis Ababa. Addis Ababa has 1.6 children per woman, same as Vienna. The best off in Africa, the educated 20% of the population in Africa also have two-child families today. Let me show you now the income distribution. Let me show you the income distribution. And it's here, it's a new software. We are actually showing it for the first time tonight. Gapminder Foundation has made this. This is just money. $1 a day is here. $2 a day, $5 a day, $10 a day, a logarithmic scale, $100 a day. This is the world population in 1800. Red is Asia, then it's Europe, and blue is Africa, and there's a little America there. How did this change? Let me show you. In 1800, 86% of the world population lived in extreme poverty. They didn't have enough food. It was misery in all continents, including Europe. And then the Industrial Revolution, thank you very much for that. The Industrial Revolution, industrially produced soap is perhaps the best health intervention ever. And this is what happens 1836, 1850, and then can you see Europe is coming out of misery, getting a better income distribution. Is it 1911 your organization was formed? Yes. There we are. See, this is Europe here. And then we can go on like this and see how the world was divided. Those who industrialized and were successful, they forced ahead. The others just increased their population. And in 1970, we had a divided world. I call it the camel world because it had two humps. One hump for the rich and one hump for the poor, with China and India. But now, industrialization spread, and with that income grow, and with wise policies and good investments in people, this happened. And you can see how the gap is closing, and here comes China and Asia, some years more successful than others, and this is it today. We don't have a divided world. We have poverty here, we have wealth over here, and we have a big middle. Remember that, a big middle. You call it emerging economies, but it's bigger than you think of. And that's where they have electricity. That's where they vaccinate the children. That's where the girls go to school, That's where they have a decent income. And I will show you and just see what it is, This is China. Can you see China on this side of it, pushing forwards? Give China another 20 years. Don't be so upset that they have a little lower growth rate. To grow with 6% from this level is much faster than grow with 8% at this level. And China doesn't have population growth any longer. That means that their GDP growth is growth per person. And they already produce the finest engineers in the world when it comes to hard studies and good qualities. So this is the world of today. Let me go back and show you how you can look upon it. These people just have fire. They're really poor in that end. Here they have a lamp. Here they have a bicycle, motorbike, washing machine, car, and they can fly on holiday. Most people in the world live between the light bulb and the washing machine. And you have to be very clever if you want to catch that market segment. Many do it. Procter & Gamble realized how many menstruations there were in Africa and Asia. They wanted to find out what young teenage girls needed for menstruation pads, and they realized they needed something that protected the entire day so they could go to secondary school. And they developed that menstruation pad, and it sells very well in Africa, and they made it at low cost, and they got big volume. Many companies we have in West Europe just go for higher quality, high income niches. There's a lot to earn if you can go for this big, enormous market which is in the middle and which is moving this way. Now, This is if I make this into just 7 billion people, this is their average annual income. And you can see this is how they live. The different levels. Let me see the energy use. This is oil. This is coal. This is gas. This is nuclear power. This is bio and hydro. And here comes solar and wind. Oh, it's written in Swedish. Sorry. Solar and wind. Small but extremely important, but still small. The world runs on fossil fuel. And of that, the richest billion uses half. The second richest use 25%. The third richest uses about 12%. And the rest doesn't use much. These are the 6 million children that die every year. They die here. Can you see? The poorest people, they have all the child death and they have almost no carbon dioxide emission. In the middle, they have very few child death and carbon dioxide emission is increasing, and the sustainability is a task on this side and the development is a task on that side. This is really the world. And see the big middle there. How important that is. They have 6 children per woman, they have 2, they have 3, and they have 2. Contraceptives are used much more in the world than you think. And in fact, it's a shame that all women doesn't have access to it. About half of the women in Africa who wants contraceptives don't get it. It's very unproductive for the world not to fix that. So this is it. The poverty line where you don't have food, the airline where you can fly on holiday, and this is how it has changed. 50% of the world population who can fly on holidays outside the West, outside OECD. And in the future it will be like this. Even the high income segment in the world will be mainly outside the OECD in the future. And let me finish with some photos here from the G20 meeting, the 15th of November, when George Bush had no money. He was Greece at that time. He had to ask for money. He asked his friend, He asked Merkel, and Merkel was harsh. She's always a little tough when you ask for money directly, And she said no, and Brown said no. So he had to invite for a G20 meeting with the leaders of the 20 most economically powerful countries. And look at this official photo who stands next to him, because those who stand next to him was those who offered to buy most bonds, who actually saved the United States of America out of their worst economic crisis in modern time, I like Bush here because you can see this is the mark where he should stand. This is Jintao's mark. But Jintao has moved a little towards Bush. But then Bush, he leans to Lula. Can you see this? Because he has democratically elected leaders on that side and he leans away from the others there, So that's honor for Bush for that, But who was it that saved the American economy? It was a socialist, it was a communist, and 2 Muslims. Mind the Gap, we picked from London, Gapminder Foundation, offer you a worldview upgrade. You can follow me on Twitter, and you have to do this. You have to know the world. Bush did it. All must do it. Thank you very much.